She never sacrificed anything. She ran away to the military because she couldn't cut it in the real world, while my son actually stayed behind to build my empire. My father's booming, arrogant voice cut through the chatter of the upscale country club dining room. He didn't care who heard him. He wanted everyone at the surrounding tables, the local business owners, our wealthy neighbors, and my brother's elite snob friends, to hear every single word. I stood there in my crisp, clean Marine Corps service alphas. I was a lieutenant, a combat medic officer who had spent the last year in a grueling, high-casualty deployment zone. I had just got off a 20-hour military transport flight, my body aching, my spirit exhausted. I had come straight to his retirement party to surprise him. Instead, my father stared at me as if I were a piece of dirt on his expensive Italian leather shoes. My mother sat beside him, casually sipping her martini, nodding in agreement, while my brother Jason smirked, playing with the keys to his brand new sports car. "Dad, I just got back from a deployment," I said, a wave of agonizing pain and betrayal hitting my chest. "I've spent the last 12 months saving lives in a combat zone." "Oh, please, Chloe, don't play the victim card," my mother sneered, not even looking me in the eye. "You chose to run off and play soldier. You didn't help your father build his firm. You didn't help Jason with his startup. You've always been completely selfish." "Exactly," Jason laughed, leaning back. "Your little medals don't pay the bills, sis. Go cry to someone who actually cares. You're ruining Dad's big night." The onlookers at the neighboring tables began whispering, looking at me with judgmental, pitying eyes. My own family was publicly branding me a selfish coward on the day I returned from war. The humiliation choked me. I turned around, fought back my tears, and walked out into the cold night air. I threw my heavy military sea bag into the back of my old truck. My hands were shaking violently on the steering wheel. The emotional agony was unbearable, but the night was about to get much worse. Buzz. My phone vibrated aggressively in my pocket. It was a text from my father. "Don't even think about coming back to the estate tonight. We've changed the gate and front door security codes. We aren't letting an ungrateful brat ruin our family peace. Also, since you clearly don't care about this family, I've revoked your authorization on the corporate account. Good luck." Before I could even process the text, a massive warning notification flashed from my banking app. "Alert. Your primary savings account has been drained of $50,000. Initiated by authorized joint user Richard Davis." My father had just stolen my entire combat deployment savings. They had locked me out of my own childhood home and robbed me blind within minutes of me walking out. They truly believed they were the untouchable elites of this town. They thought my father's real estate firm was thriving because of his business genius, and that Jason's startup was funded by his brilliant ideas. They had no idea. 2 years ago, my father's firm was hit with an unexpected federal lawsuit for severe building code violations. He was on the verge of bankruptcy, public disgrace, and prison. I was a young officer back then, but I had a pristine credit score and a substantial inheritance from our late grandfather, who was a decorated veteran. I quietly stepped in. I used my $200,000 inheritance to pay off his legal debts, bought the deed to our family's massive estate entirely in my own name to keep them from being foreclosed, and even funded Jason's entire startup using my active duty pay. They thought a mysterious investor had saved them. They had completely forgotten that every single luxury they flaunted was bought with the blood I sweat in the military. I checked into a cheap, run-down motel off the highway, my chest tight with a mixture of grief and rising cold fury. But my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I unlocked the screen and my heart shattered into a million pieces. Jason had already launched a vicious smear campaign online. He had posted a photo of me walking away from the country club on his public Facebook page, which had thousands of local followers. "It breaks my heart to write this," the caption read, "but my sister Chloe, who has become unstable and violent due to her military service, showed up to my father's retirement party tonight. She demanded we give her a massive cut of the family business, threatened my mother, and stormed out when we refused to give in to her greed. We love her, but she is a danger to our community. Please be careful around her." The comments from local relatives, neighbors, and family friends were absolutely brutal. "Unbelievable. She should be dishonorably discharged," one wrote. "What a greedy, toxic person. Poor Richard and Linda for having to deal with her," another commented. "My own family was completely destroying my career, my character, and my sanity before I could even unpack my uniform." Right then, the grief died. The agonizing pain vanished, replaced instantly by a cold, calculating military focus. I was a Marine Corps officer. I coordinated high-stakes operations. I didn't panic under pressure. I executed tactical countermeasures, and my family had just become my primary targets. I wiped a single tear from my cheek and stood up. "No more," I whispered. "You think I haven't sacrificed anything? I'll show you what happens when I take my sacrifices back." I opened my laptop. First, I locked the joint family trust and corporate accounts entirely, freezing every single dollar. My father's attempt to wire another $30,000 was instantly declined. Next, I pulled up the legal deed to the estate. I contacted my military legal attorney and initiated an immediate, non-negotiable 24-hour eviction notice for the illegal occupants of my property. Finally, I downloaded every single financial record, proving that my father's firm and Jason's startup were alive solely because of my personal funds. I wasn't going to hide. I was going to expose them in front of the entire world. The next morning, I walked out of a local notary office after finalizing the eviction paperwork. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, a sharp, tactical instinct flared up, the exact feeling you get when you're being tracked by hostile forces. A massive, armored black SUV with completely blacked-out windows and military plates was idling quietly across the street. It had been following me since I left the motel. Through a slight gap in the dark window tint, I caught the distinct glimpse of a high-ranking Marine Corps official staring directly at me, holding a thick folder. He didn't make a move, he just observed me with absolute intensity. When I stepped toward my truck, the SUV slowly pulled away, its engine roaring quietly as it disappeared into the morning traffic. My heart raced. Was it internal affairs? Had my family's viral lies triggered an official investigation into my military standing? The pressure was suffocating, but I couldn't let it break my focus. The final showdown was tonight. Tonight was the grand finale of my father's retirement celebrations, a massive public gala at the city's grandest ballroom. Over 100 of the city's most powerful figures, business partners, and politicians were in attendance. I walked straight through the grand double doors. I wasn't wearing civilian clothes. I wore my immaculate Marine Corps dress blues, my combat ribbons and medals gleaming brilliantly under the crystal chandeliers. The ballroom was packed. In the center of the room stood my father, holding a microphone, loudly boasting about his self-made success to a circle of wealthy investors. The moment he spotted me marching toward him, his face contorted into pure, ugly rage. He tapped the microphone loudly, silencing the entire ballroom. "Everyone, look who decided to crawl back," my father announced with a cruel, mocking laugh. "The ungrateful soldier is back for more attention. Tell us, Chloe, did you come here to beg for a handout, or are you going to threaten my business partners because your own life is a complete failure?" The wealthy crowd chuckled dismissively, looking at me with absolute disgust. My mother stepped up beside him, crossing her arms. "Get out of here, Chloe. You are a toxic parasite. We don't want your toxic mental state ruining my father's legacy." My brother Jason sneered. "Leave before I have the security forcefully throw you into the street." They thought they had won. They thought they had backed me into a corner in front of the whole town. Suddenly, the heavy double doors of the ballroom slammed open with a resounding thud. The room went completely dead silent. Walking into the ballroom was a tall, imposing figure with an unmistakable aura of absolute power. He wore a flawless Marine Corps uniform covered in rows of historic combat medals, and on his shoulders gleamed the silver stars of a three-star lieutenant general. It was Lieutenant General Marcus Vance, the commander of the Marine Forces, a legendary figure who reported directly to the Pentagon. Behind him walked two stone-faced military police officers. The crowd gasped in shock. My father's jaw dropped. A three-star general entering a local civilian gala was entirely unheard of. General Vance didn't look at the wealthy investors. He didn't look at my parents. He marched with terrifying authority straight across the polished floor, directly toward me. He stopped exactly 2 feet in front of me. He snapped his shoes together, stood at flawless attention, and delivered a crisp, powerful salute directly to me. Lieutenant Chloe Davis, General Vance's booming voice echoed off the high ceilings. It is an absolute honor to finally deliver your commendation in person. I immediately snapped to attention and returned the salute perfectly. The honor is mine, General. My father's face went completely pale. He stumbled backward into a table. General, I think there's a major misunderstanding, he stammered, trying to force a manipulative smile. Our daughter is just a low-level medic. She's unstable. She's been trying to extort my firm. General Vance slowly turned his head, his icy eyes locking onto my father. The sheer, terrifying authority radiating from the commander made my father instantly freeze in fear. Hold your tongue, the general said, with a quiet, lethal weight. You are speaking about a national hero. Lieutenant Davis didn't just play medic. During a high-threat ambush last month, she braved heavy enemy machine gun fire to drag 6 wounded Marines to safety, performing life-saving surgeries in the dirt. She is being awarded the Navy Cross next week, and I am here to personally handle the hostile threats against her. The entire ballroom erupted in shocked, frantic whispers. My mother looked like she had just swallowed glass. Furthermore, General Vance continued, gesturing to his military police officer, who stepped forward and dropped a thick legal binder heavily on the table right in front of my father. The United States military protects its officers. We conducted a full federal investigation into the financial fraud, theft, and cybercrimes committed against Lieutenant Davis. I stepped forward, looking my mother, father, and brother dead in their terrified eyes. The grief in my heart was entirely dead. I was in absolute control. Father, I said clearly, ensuring every single wealthy investor in the ballroom heard me. The $50,000 you stole from my combat savings account last night, the bank has flagged it as grand larceny. The funds have been reversed, and your names have been permanently removed from every account. My father choked, grabbing his chest. You can't do this. I already did, I replied calmly. I turned to my mother, whose face was completely drained of color. And the $5 million estate you are currently living in? I bought the deed 2 years ago when you went bankrupt. The eviction notice was served to the property this morning. You have exactly 24 hours to pack your things and vacate my property. Chloe, please, Jason shrieked, his voice cracking as he saw his wealthy investors backing away from him in horror. My startup partners are watching. You're ruining my career. You're ruining my life. The primary investor, a highly respected local billionaire, stepped forward, looking at my father and Jason with pure disgust. Richard, your entire firm and your son's startup were funded by your daughter's combat pay while you publicly slandered her as a coward? The partnership is over. I don't do business with frauds." I looked at my father, who was trembling, tears of ruin streaming down his face. I leaned in close, ensuring my final words cut through the silent room like a blade. "You told everyone I never sacrificed anything, Father," I said, my voice dripping with icy marine authority. "But the truth is, I sacrificed my youth to build the foundation you were standing on, and tonight I'm pulling the plug. Enjoy the street." The destruction of their social and financial existence was instant and absolute. The investors immediately turned their backs on my father, walking away and canceling every contract. Within seconds, Jason's phone began buzzing frantically as news of the fraud leaked online, causing his startup shares and follower counts to completely collapse into nothingness. My mother dropped to her knees on the ballroom floor, sobbing hysterically, grabbing at my uniform trousers. My father stood frozen, realizing his firm, his home, and his reputation were entirely destroyed. The wealthy guests who had laughed at me minutes ago now looked at my family with utter revulsion. Several prominent figures tried to step up to apologize to me, but I ignored them entirely. They didn't matter. General Vance offered a small, proud smile. "Your transport is waiting outside, Lieutenant. Let's get you ready for the Pentagon." "Right behind you, sir," I said. I turned my back on my weeping family, walking out of the ballroom with my head held high, leaving them to completely drown in the absolute chaos of their own greed. You cannot cure a toxic, envious family with your own sacrifice. For years, I believed that if I worked harder, if I bled more, if I quietly saved them from bankruptcy and funded their lavish lifestyles, they would finally see my worth and love me. I thought my silence would buy their respect. But narcissistic people do not appreciate your sacrifices. They merely view them as a green light to exploit you further. They will happily watch you risk your life in a war zone while they plot how to spend your hard-earned money. True honor isn't about letting toxic people destroy you just because you share a last name. True honor is knowing your own value, drawing an unbreakable line in the sand, and letting the fires of karma handle the rest.